Hi, my name is Juliana Hutchinson, and my project is on Roman sarcophagi. So the Romans would originally, in the first century AD, would cremate their dead and save the bones and ashes and put them in urns in the family home. But at the beginning of the second century AD, Romans would bury their dead in a sarcophagus. And sarcophagus in the Greek language means flesh eater, which I think is rather funny. Now, there were three different styles of sarcophagi that the Romans would make. One was the Western style, one was the Attic style, and last of all was the Asiatic style. The Western style was typically made in Rome. It was meant to be set against a wall, so only the front and short ends were carved. It has a flat lid with a raised decorated front, and usually it included panels with inscriptions or carvings along the top. This style was usually square, short and square, and simple. It was common for the scenes to be carved on the side of Greek mythology or biographical episodes from the life of the deceased, like weddings, hunting, war, whatnot. This here is my example of a Western style sarcophagus. It had the 3rd century's Linos style of that looks more the shape of more of a tub than it was square, but it has the inscription of the deceased and the deceased loved one. The deceased is Claudia Arria, and she is the mother of Anania Hilary. Anania Hilary did this for her mother, and she described her mother as incomparable to anyone else. And I think that's rather sweet. And to the right of the inscription at the top there is a woman, a carving of a woman, and that is the likeness of Claudia Arria, the deceased. And the story below her is the myth of Selene and Endymion. And these myths and Greek stories were meant to protect the dead, to give them a long after death, a long life after death. And these carvings are truly incredible and something typical to the Linos style of sarcophagus, meaning the tub shape, is the two lion heads. Most of these styles would have two lion heads, one on each side of it. And I don't really know why, but that was just very common for the Romans. It's a very cool thing. Now I'm going to go on to the Attic type. The Attic type is typically made in Athens. It's not intended to be set against a wall, so there's carvings on all four sides. And these carvings are set in a continuous frieze, which means the story continues all the way around the sarcophagus without stopping. It's just a continuous story. There's no breaks, there's no separation. It's just the story keeps going on and on. And the lid for this sarcophagus was usually a steeply pitched gabled roof. You don't see it in this picture on the right, but it looks more like a house or a temple for the deceased. And that's to look at this example bigger, you can see that the lid, instead of it being a steeply pitched roof, is a Klein style roof where the couple is reclining on the top, and usually or supposedly the faces were supposed to be carved to the likeness of the deceased. But here you see that this Klein is unfinished, possibly because the deceased, after they died, before a carver could come carve their likeness into the stone, the deceased decomposed so much that they could no longer recognize or carve the likeness of the person. Or it could be just after death, the people who took care of their dead bodies didn't want to have them carved in. It's money, many different reasons could be why. This is another example I have of as an Attic style sarcophagus, the Ludovisi battle sarcophagus. And what I really like about this is the center piece, the man, Ludovisi himself, in the center stage, up at the top, open arms, presenting himself. Here we look at him closer, and he's in the upper right-hand corner, and he appears to be framed in such a way that every head around him is looking away from him. They give him a sort of frame and give him a sort of, he is protected, he is fine, he does not need to be taken care of. He himself is powerful. And I think that's an incredible way to sculpt the man. And a lot of the times, the main character of a story was sculpted with the likeness of the deceased. And at the upper right and bottom left, upper left and bottom right corners, you can see Roman soldiers, and they were armed and perfect, and they looked handsome, and they were calm and strong. And the horse in the upper left corner is wild, and the Roman to the horse's left is just in complete state of calm, controlling. And the Roman in the bottom right-hand corner, he's fighting two barbarians. And the Roman compared to the barbarians is perfect, and the barbarians are a mess. They don't have their armor. They don't have handsome features. They look barbaric, and that's how they're supposed to be portrayed. And they're supposed to be winning this battle of barbarians versus Romans. And in the bottom left-hand corner, you can just see the absolute layering and detail, how these people, this war seems to burst out of the marble, but not. It's as if each character isn't even attached to the marble. They're their own being, and it's incredible how the artist carved so deeply in some places and then just was so detailed on some of these characters, every single one of these characters. It's really an incredible piece. Now we go on to the Asiatic type of sarcophagus. This was typically made in Phrygia, which is located right below the Black Sea. It's similar to the Attic type in most every way, basically. All four sides are carved. It's meant to be out in the middle, out in the open. And the roof is a gabled roof, and it's supposed to be symbolize a house or temple for the deceased. But the big main difference is that this style of carvings is not the frieze style where it goes continuously all around, but the carvings are divided into frames by columns. Here you can see more clearly each individual character is framed by a column, has its own purpose, has its own story. They're not connected in any way. And again, there's no roof style. It's a Klein style. And this one appears to be finished. The woman's face is carved. And in upper right, you see a child with wings. And the incredible design put into all of the borders around this sarcophagus is incredible. So this must have been a very wealthy Roman who could afford the marble and the carvings, whereas those who were less rich would have wood or other lesser stones with their sarcophagi would be carved out of. Common later styles added to the sarcophagus would be the Klein lid, which is the full-length sculpture portrait of the deceased, reclining as if they were at a banquet, and the Linos, a tub-shaped sarcophagus resembling a trough for pressing grapes, and often features two projecting lion's head spouts in the front. So here is an example of the Klein, and again the woman's face is unfinished while the man's is finished. This is likely because he preceded her to the grave, and no one finished her face because maybe she wasn't buried with him and moved on and married someone else, or maybe they just didn't want to. It's a very strange thing, but this is an example of the Klein style lid. And here we have the Linos style shaped. It's like a tub. This doesn't have the lions on it. This just has a story of the triumph of Dionysus. But what I really like about this specific tub-shaped sarcophagus is the legs that it's standing on, the spheres, the black spheres, the way they contrast, the the white of the marble. It's really a very creative and very impressive style for it. Here is my works cited. I got most of my information from the Met site, as well as some information off, or some pictures off of Google. I just typed in Roman sarcophagi and many of them popped up. And thank you for watching my